Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where from you are watching us. This is EUROSTUDENT Talks, and today we are going to discuss a very intriguing, hot and timely topic, AI and its use in higher education, especially when it comes to writing assignments. As we advertised, it won't be a study or survey-based webinar this time, but rather a thought-provoking reflection on this topic. And it's very likely that in the end, we will have even more questions that we can discuss together later on. EuroStudent has been keeping its eye on the topic of AI in higher education for a while. Actually, we even planned a topical module, a special module to our questionnaire during the current round, EuroStudent 9. But in the end, we didn't make it because we realized that if we make the questions now and the field phase will start, the final report of the project will be ready in 3 years. And it might happen very easily that even our questions will be outdated by that time because the era is just developing so fast. However, we are still paying attention to AI in higher education very eagerly, and that's why we're also having this talks here today. Today, our plan is that we will first hear a presentation by Bertel de Grote, and after that, we can also hear what students think about this topic. We have here a representative from ESU, Ursula Liss. Before we start, let me very briefly introduce our speakers. Bertel de Grote teaches law in graduate and undergraduate programs at the Faculty of Economics and Business Administration of Kent University. In addition, he is a visiting professor at the University of Liège, contributing to a course on legal terminology. He is a vice dean and member of Education Quality Board and the Program Committee. He serves in program audits and accreditation panels in Flanders and abroad. He has an interest in quality assurance in higher education, as well as internationalization and management of higher education institutions. Bertel de Grote is a member of an administrative court for disputes on study progress in higher education and chairs an advisory body on the rights to enroll in primary and secondary education. For a decade, he managed the bachelor and master programs in business administration, and nowadays he chairs the examinations boards. Our student representative from ESU, as I said, is Ursula Liss. Ursula is from Poland, where she has been involved in the student movement since the beginning of her studies. She started as a faculty student representative, progressing to being a member of the executive committee of the Students' Parliament of the Republic of Poland, to now being a membership coordinator in European Students' Union, where her areas of focus are quality assurance, digitalization, and surprise, surprise, AI in education. So we definitely have wonderful speakers for the webinar today. I think it's enough of me talking. So please, Bertel, you can start sharing your screen, and we are already eager to hear your thoughts.
So, good morning. I hope I at least succeeded in this first step. Thank you for the warm welcome and good afternoon to all of you. I have to admit that I don't feel at ease today because, as was said by Marleen, I will probably only confuse you. So I'm not a researcher. I'm not an expert in this field. I'm just someone who is curious, who is teaching, and who often is also maybe afraid of AI. And maybe as a lawyer, I always thought that writing was an important skill. And well, now I have to refer to Winnie the Pooh, where Eeyore wonders whether all this writing business isn't maybe overrated. let's see. As said, I represent proudly Ghent University. And well, uh, unfortunately, um, we were not on site for this presentation because I like to start it with the Clash. Um, and in the song, Should I Stay or Should I Go? They say, if I go, there will be trouble. And if I stay, it will be double. It's a wonderful song. And really, I think it fits to today's topic, to AI. AI uh, probably is there to stay, but it brings a lot of challenges, and we have to learn to deal with those challenges. And maybe as being a couple, if we want to deal with the challenges of being a couple, we also have to try to understand one another. Let me first start with something I read just yesterday in the Flemish newspaper on economic news, The Tijd. There they said from the 80 to 20-year-old persons, so let's say students, 68% say that they are regular users of generative AI. And that is a plus of 26% if we compare it to 2023. And for the 24 to, and sorry for the mistake, 34-year-old population, 46% say that they are general users. So I think, as said in the article, that the time of experimenting is over, that we really go to a phase of consolidation. And I think this says it all. Have you figured out how AI will impact our business? And your colleague says, well, I'm working on it. And working is, I will ask it to open AI. I don't know whether that is the best approach, but maybe it's often reality. If we are in doubt, we just rely on Gen AI, and maybe our students do as well. And what I'm a bit afraid of, that we learn our students, if they receive an email, to reduce it to some bullet points, or vice versa, to turn some bullet points in a beautiful email. For me, it's fine, at least if they understand the processes that are behind it. So as you see, I have quite mixed feelings. It's like Janus regarding Gen AI, and I hope that my disease will be infectious, and that I will also be able to bring you to those mixed feelings. So I will talk on the topic from a lecturer's point of view. I will also, of course, share with you my concerns regarding quality assurance. And in the end, my children always say, you're a boomer. You don't know what's happening out there. So maybe that's also part of my perspective. The perspective of someone who still thinks that it could be good to play outside when the sun is shining. So let's come back to that being overrated. And I hope you don't find the humor cynical, but as happiness, you could say writing is somehow overrated. Nobody ever accomplished anything great while they were happy. I don't know how I have to make the analogy with writing, but let's say that's up to you. So, as everyone nowadays, who has to prepare a presentation, I asked to OpenAI, well, could you give me some reasons why asking students to write a master's dissertation makes sense in the light of Gen AI or doesn't make sense in the light of Gen AI? And the machine managed perfectly well. So I learned that maybe the skill to be authentic and original could fade away, that maybe AI could lead to modifications in the skill demands from the labor side, or the, let's say, the employer's side, and could have as a consequence that a master's thesis is not the best preparation to it, or well, that there are AI tools and that they enable real-time data analysis. So why do we still need that extended timeline whereby a student during 1 year has to dive into a topic and well, and take care of maybe inefficient and outdated challenges? Um, or AI could lead to the erosion of the value of exclusive academic expertise that nowadays we showcase in a thesis. And then in the end, it was said, well, maybe AI evolves and it pushes institutions to rethink their methods of evaluating academic achievement. But on the other hand, I got 5 positive answers, and I won't take the time to address them all with you. But again, I think there is that idea of, well, there are 2 sides to the story. And what is even more important to me, I think, that if you read what AI gives you as an answer, it does make sense somehow. Which brings me back to where I started. It is something, Gen AI, we will have to take account of. We can not neglect it in our praxis of education, in the way we conceive study programs, and so on. So maybe the hardest thing to all of us, we will need a balanced approach. So today I will talk about a writing assignment, and I hoped to be able to provoke you somehow by saying that it's quite overrated, to allow you to reflect on Gen AI and its influence of quality in education, and also its influence on writing assignments. And I think it's quite intertwined. Those questions are quite intertwined. We cannot deal with one without taking into account the other. And I think in the end, it has to bring us to a reflection also on outcomes. What do we want for our students? What do we want to give them in their backpack when they leave our universities, our university colleges? First of all, we have to know what Gen AI is. Otherwise, we can't have a meaningful discussion. And I think here I have a problem because I don't know what AI is. I don't know what technically is behind the machinery, what is in the black box. So for me, Gen AI is a black box. And as I said, I have a problem, but I feel somehow comfortable because when I talk to colleagues, most of them have the same problem. So maybe, and I did not prepare it in this way, here we come to one of the first challenges. Let's make sure that lecturers know what they have to cope with, that they know how Gen AI functions, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, what it can and what it can't. So what I understood is that Gen AI is a subfield of artificial intelligence, but that focuses on content creation, whereby we create content based on existing content, where we search for patterns in existing content and we project that when making new content. Well, that the evolution goes fast is something I hope having proved to you. So it's a kind of brain mimicking. It's based on neural networks, and I really have to admit, here people when they try to explain it to me, mostly lose me because it's so you really need to invest in that technical knowledge. What I know is that it's a vast landscape and that there are a lot of tools and that those tools, and I referred here to a very interesting website, and I hope that we can make sure that you can dispose of the PowerPoints for further reference afterwards. So you can use it for text, you can use it for code, you can use it for video, for music, for whatever. So in the end, and look in the database, there is, let's say, an AI machine for everything. The last thing I want to give you is that it's based on large language models. It's language based and it generates, trained on text, on data, whereby we transform, whereby we predict, let's say, literally the next word based on the previous one. And of course, we are more effective if we have more calculating power, and of course, if we have more data to train the tool on. And for us, for the students, I think one of the most important things are the prompts, the ability to talk with it in a very intuitive way. And of course, if we master those prompts, we also come to better results. Now, the question is, when you use ChatGPT, do you use then a GPS? Do we address the same competences? And this is based on an interview I read whereby a professor said, well, the technology is there. Don't let be too skeptic. No, let's stimulate students to use that technology. Why should they summarize text if Gen AI can do it for them? And the bottom line was, if we drive to the seaside for our weekend, we also use a GPS. So technology is out there, let's use it. With the analogy of the seaside, I have another question for you. The GPS brings me to the seaside, and I don't have to be able to read a map. And I will, when I arrive there, I will be able to assess whether the GPS did a good job. On the other hand, if I ask OpenAI to summarize a text for me, it will be very hard to assess the summary that was made if I'm not able to make summaries myself. Or maybe I will have to ask it OpenAI again. And then I think we end up in a kind of vicious circle of depending on the machine. So in the end, don't we need those skills for critical use that maybe OpenAI won't allow us to learn anymore? And in the end, as I said, the only method we will have to answer the question whether something is done right by the machine is just to ask it to the machine. As I said, no answers for you, just topics for discussion. So I think the first thing we have to do, and I already mentioned it, that's why I stated I maybe have no clue about how GenAI functions, is that we have to inform the students, that we have to inform the lecturers so that they know how it functions. A lot of my colleagues say to me, oh, ChatGPT understands my question, understands the text, and then summarizes it. Is that real understanding, or is it just, as I said, pattern recognition? So maybe there are less and less, but maybe there are limitations to what ChatGPT, what OpenAI can do us. Maybe our students, maybe we are not aware of the importance of prompts in receiving good quality output. Maybe we are not aware of ethical dimensions, because in the end, I think Gen AI is often an echo chamber of opinions. Maybe we are biased ourselves when we ask questions to the machine. Are we aware of that? Do we learn students to deal with that? Another question to you is, won't we have to rethink our teaching approach? Maybe we have to be aware that AI is there and that we have to learn people to learn with AI. And we have to shift on in the way we think about output when assessing it. And then it brings me to something that is very important, according to me, writing skills. For instance, a master's thesis. Will we still assess those drafting skills? And are they still so important for society? Or is it better to assess how students can use all the available tools to come to a balance, to a good end result? Okay, I moved forwards, but I want at the same time, and that's why I'm so confusing for you, going backwards. Because I'm convinced, but please say to me that I'm wrong, that pure writing, the skill of pure writing is also very important, because I see it somehow as a way, as a tool, as a lever to think. It's something that facilitates the thinking process. Is using ChatGTP then like using a GPS? Well, maybe it's not perfectly the same, but it is there. And as you can see in the wonderful cartoons of Tex Avery, the car of tomorrow, I think it's there. And yeah, it's like a new device in a car, and we will have to deal with it in a senseful way. That's our responsibility towards students. And we will have to make sure that in the future our students have the competences that are, and apologize for for the provocation, that are loved by the machine, by the computer, that fit the new society. And that brings us all to the question, what in a future-proof way is expertise? Well, probably you think now about me, well, he is an expert in nothing. And well, then you're right. So maybe I'm just here, and sorry for the stupid joke, to tell you uh, as hopefully a non-expert what you want to hear. So this brings me, and I hope you as well, to a dilemma. Do we still have to invest in knowledge, or is that old-fashioned? Is that an old-fashioned competence? Um, if we train students in knowledge, maybe we make zoo animals of them, not fit for society. We train them artificially, but not in order to become the professionals of tomorrow. Um, or is the process of acquiring knowledge, is that still something that in itself, let's say, um, as intellectual power training, is that still valuable in itself? So we have to balance that against the question, what competences are required by the labor market, which will bring us to the question, what is the need for domain-specific knowledge? Do we still need it as a framework for critical thinking, as a framework to assess what AI does, to, let's say, uh, alleviate that dependency? Is it still, in order to understand the field, necessary that students train the concepts, the basic rules, their interrelations, or not? So maybe knowledge is, but I don't have the answer, as I said. Maybe it is still a prerequisite for AI literacy. And then what about generative competences? As I said, analyzing, drafting, creating, summarizing. Is that replaced by AI, or will that be replaced by AI? Or will it be supported, enhanced by AI? So is it then maybe still important that students master those skills? And maybe it's an evolution. Maybe we will have to adapt, and students will adapt on middle and on long term. Maybe it's a good thing. Again, I don't have the answer, that we don't have to invest that much in those generic competencies in the future. Maybe that will free up time for more social aspects, team-related aspects of problem solving, of learning. But in the end, I strongly believe that uh, pure, that's why for me writing is that let's say intellectual gymnastics is still, even in an AI society, of value, since it's a way, it's, let's say, a highway to thinking. But uh, maybe you don't agree with me, and you say, well, you condemn students to the zoo, to a kind of dinosaur park, and you don't prepare them for society. This brings me to a last dilemma. Um, how then do we go from the learning objectives to the teaching method in constructive alignment to the evaluation methods? Because, well, I think if we train something, we have to assess it as well. Again, my focus is writing skills. Uh, as said, for me, they are still important in a process of academic growth, because they help us, for instance, to conceptualize. So for me, for instance, the master's thesis is still the cherry on the cake, but I already gave this presentation in a webinar where people said me, but your cake, society doesn't fancy your cake anymore. So maybe you won't agree with me. Or maybe you will say, yeah, we still want the cake, but we want other ingredients in our cake. So that's, I think, something I have to take into account. The first option is to say, well, let's ban AI. Students may not use it. That was what my university did till 2023, 2024. So the use of AI machines was seen as fraud because it was seen as plagiarism. But everyone knew that students used AI. The trick was just not to get caught, and that it was useful to use them in all aspects of writing, for instance, a thesis. So I think as a university, we have to come to reality. So there is society who says, please learn your students to make responsible use of AI tools. So AI is a new reality. And we have, I think, the task to give students a realistic framework for their behavior. What we have to do probably is to invest in literacy, AI literacy. So students use the tools and they can be used for multiple aspects of thesis writing. So I would be, in Flemish we say, a dove, whereby they mean, yeah, you're quite naive if you think that you're still a good assessor if you start with the assumption that dissertations are written without AI. So then you're living in, let's say, in the outer world, in a non-existing world. Moreover, I read that AI detection is not 100% effective, so that we cannot rely on it. And therefore, we, at least, and I think a lot of universities, said we have to embrace and we have to explicitly allow our students to use AI, but in a responsible way. And taking into account the time, I will just focus on what that could mean for assessment, and then I would like to wrap up so that we have time for discussion and questions. So how to deal with the potential issues that are created by AI? Well, first of all, I think students must be aware of risks and dilemmas and must be able to recognize them. And we have to assess that as well. So that critical reflection towards Gen AI is, according to me, very important. I won't number out those aspects. It's related to privacy, it's related to information, disinformation, it's about research integrity. It's also about the risk of a new digital gap. It's also about uh, ecology. I was not aware, but it seems that um, you spend a lot of energy if you just ask a simple question to open AI. So as we have to be aware of it, students have to be aware of it as well. And then we come to the master's thesis as the main example of writing assignments. Well, as you see, and as I already said, a lot of skills come together in the master's thesis, in the assignment, but for all those skills, AI is useful. So I think we have a double way. We have to rethink our objectives, and we have to rethink our evaluation. First of all, our objectives. If you see master's thesis like horse racing, well, maybe we have to rethink the race if one of the horses has AI, has other shoes that allows it to run faster, to jump better, for instance, enhance the jumping power. That is what I mean with learning objectives. Secondly, output can maybe be a less important aspect of the assessment. Maybe we have to invest more in the oral questioning, in the defense, where we see whether a student masters a topic, also masters the way she used artificial intelligence. And of course, to help the student to make in a responsible, in a meaningful way use of AI, we probably have to invest more in the process and in the evaluation of the process. And I see it a bit like a soundboard where we will have to balance out those different aspects in our evaluation. So first of all, the objectives, and I think we will have to adapt the learning objectives as well. If we say, okay, this objective is not dealt with anymore in the thesis, in a writing assignment, we can deal with it in another course, or it doesn't make sense to see it as an objective because we can, since there is GenAI, not properly assess it anymore. And maybe society learns us that some of the objectives are not relevant anymore. And so here I said, rethink the product evaluation. Maybe in another webinar, we have to go more in depth, rethink the defense and rethink the process evaluation. And I think one of the difficult things for us lecturers as well will be to bring what we require from students to a higher level of complexity. So maybe we will have to sharpen the razor when assessing the, the students, which will, I'm afraid, be more time consuming as well, but it will be key to the validity of the assessment. And I think two keywords, but we don't have the time to delve into it, are probably be more holistic, and maybe something that can help us when reworking assessment can also be investing in rubrics. Because in the end, this is not what we want. We don't want to have students that rely on generative AI because they had a birthday party for their dog and ChatGPT wrote a nice poem. This is not, according to me, academic standards. So just for you to take home Gen AI literacy, maybe that must be a new learning objective in courses, in our programs. We must maybe create competence clusters on it. And then secondly, responsible use, and we have to integrate this, I think, in the assessment, is also ask students, well, explain to me how you use GenAI. What did it change? How do you assess what GenAI did to you? Write something in your preamble, give an overview of the prompts you used, give different text versions, compare them. Of course, there is criticism possible. You can say to me, well, all these questions can be addressed by the students to Gen AI as well. Nevertheless, I think we have to invest in that that critical mindset. And the very last thing is that, well, maybe for those basic skills, let's say, to learn students how to swim, we have to go back to controlled settings where we ask students to write things at school again, so that they have those basic competences. So which brings me to the final question. Well, is it overrated writing? Is it underrated writing? Well, probably it's both. It's very overrated if we keep on doing the way we did, but let's not underrate it and just throw it away. But maybe let's rethink our writing assessment. Let's give them sense again in that new environment. I'm just starting to reflect. So the steps I set are steps of a baby. So that's also the only thing I can offer you, just questions. I can share with you what I'm struggling with, and hoping that in the end we can come to a solution ourselves. But one thing we may not forget when we discuss about, is it harmful? Is it helpful? Gen AI, well, it can be both. We have to make good use of it. But I think what I really hope is that we can maintain an environment where students still cherish the satisfaction they can have from dealing with things that are challenging, and knowing that together they can cope with them. Because I think that's the best preparation we can give them for the future and for their responsibility in society. You have my email address. I hope that you have a lot of critical remarks, and you can then send to me, and I will ask to Gen AI to answer them very kindly. No, that was just a stupid joke. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bertil. I think we all have a lot to think about and reflect on. Our participants, listeners, can already prepare their questions and put them in the chat or raise their hand later on. But first of all, I would like to give word to Ursula from ESU, and I would like to hear, Ursula, how you, from student perspective, see the AI and its use in higher education in general, as well as a reflection to Bertil's presentation. What are your thoughts and your ideas?
Hi everyone, my name is Ursula. Like Marlene said, I'm representative of ESU, so European Student Union. We represent 20 million students, so it's hard to answer for all of them, but I will try my best right now. So from the perspective of students, there are some key components of what we want to see when it comes to AI in higher education. And first of all, I would say that it's accessibility for all, which is the perspective of use of AI when it comes to, for instance, summarizing text or captioning for students with certain disabilities or learning difficulties. So this is where we see the positive perspective of the use of AI. However, it's not that we only see the positives and we're so eager to include it because we are aware of the risk that it's taking. We have a lot of discussions regarding the ethical use of AI and how it should be included in the study courses. Because I'm actually the most important key moment is um, the AI literacy that is widely needed in current state of the universities. Because the reality is that many students, if not most of them, already use GenAI tools on a daily basis for various aspects for their work or university tasks. For instance, summarizing text, suggesting ideas, or making connections between research findings. So what is lacking is the AI literacy. So we need to teach the students, excuse me, we need to teach the students how to use AI properly, what is allowed, how it's used to in an ethical way, how to check the for the data that's providing whether it's correct or not. How to include it rather than exclude it, because the reality is we won't be able to forbade all of the students right now to use AI and just ignore the problem and make witch trials of AI to just ignore it. Uh, it's not possible, but for this, we need clear guidelines at university level and national levels, European levels, that would allow students to see how it should be used, um, if they can use it for certain tasks, and to prepare them for their further life after the university ends, because it will be included in a lot of work afterwards, whether it's IT departments or technical fields, but also humanities, copywriting. This is where AI is already used, but this is also the area what is lacking during the university cycle right now. So this is something we should focus on. The guidelines, we are pressing on everybody we can, as Esther as well, to create them, to include universities in the guidelines of AI use at European level, because we do have AI Act. We do have a lot of documents on that, but for some reason, higher education is very often omitted during creation of that or forgotten about. So this is the area that we should focus. That's the opinion of students that we can agree on. And yeah, I agree pretty much with all the Bertel said. But I want to calm everyone down that students are aware of the risks that AI takes, that it can make learning more simplify the learning, but in a way that takes up the competences that we should usually learn. So we are aware of that, but for it to work properly, we need to, as all the stakeholders in higher education, we need to cooperate to make a streamline of how it should look like.
Yes, very good thoughts on that, Ursula. I will already take the questions in from the audience as well, and both you and Bertul can comment on that because it's just a free format discussion that we really encourage here. So Brigitte already asked in the chat that Bertul, you mentioned investing more strongly in rubrics. Any chance you could elaborate on that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Indeed, I was not able to really go in detail. I will try to share something with you.
Yeah.
I hope you see it. It's a policy document of our university, and they refer there to Sydney University, where they tried for a course yeah, to, let's say, to catch the difference in yeah, pure AI generated writing, and then let's say AI generated writing enhanced by humans in the concretization of rubrics, just to make lecturers yeah, more aware of what they have to what they have to look for, what they have to address when they have to assess a writing assignment. I have to admit, though, that I think that we must take into account that more and more this will probably make no sense anymore, because this morning, even when preparing for the webinar, I read an abstract about a study, and the object of the study was that they gave abstracts abstracts for conference papers to scientists, and they asked, well, which are written by which are fake, let's say, written by AI, and which are human-made. Well, the scientists did not that well. So more and more we see, and that's what some people tell me as well, that well, definitely Gen AI will outplay us. So here, let's say, an attempt to use rubrics, but these, and again, sorry for being well, so confusing, let's say, again, a clear caveat. Another part of the document, and this seems for me probably more interesting, is one of my university, where we try to help by rubrics a lecturer assessing the use that was made of AI. For instance, excellent use, the GenAI tools are used in a very innovative way that goes way beyond the basic functionalities. The way you report on your AI use is exceptionally clear, exceptionally well structured, is very deep going, or and then it's unsatisfactory. You give proof of ineffective use of Gen AI. But here again, I'm well aware of the fact that well, maybe Gen AI will also make those exercises oblivious in the end. But I hope, and I can of course share the document with you, that that I could give some clarification on the rubrics topic.
Thank you, Bertul. It seems very thought through how your university has dealt with that so far. Maybe one question, or actually one topic that I was thinking about, is also that we mostly focused on writing and writing skills today, but I have always been thinking also about reading, in that sense that if we let AI summarize different resources, of course it is very effective in that sense that you can save time, and you can go through a lot of materials in a much shorter time. But on the other hand, I'm always thinking that isn't it about the broad view that reading different materials and academic articles gives us? That, for example, if you are looking for resources for your master thesis, or just a bigger essay or something, then even if you don't, in the end, don't use all the resources that you went through, you still receive some knowledge, and maybe you need those resources later in the future for another work, but then you already remember them. So it's a question of this broad view that that reading actually gives to you, and if that is one of the goals of acquiring higher education as well, then it's always, as I said, as you said, it's confusing, and I don't have the answer, but I'm always thinking about the reading side as well, that it is just so easy to get those summaries and just read them and be based on that, and maybe then look further. But might it happen in the end that we lack a lot of knowledge that we used to have before we started using AI? So it's a question to you and Ursula, both, not even a question, but just a comment that we can maybe think about.
Mm-hmm. If I may, first of all, I would like to thank you for your comment, and I totally agree with your comment. And of course, when I talk about writing, I include the pre-phase of gathering knowledge, so of reading as well. I'm convinced that you can't write if you are not nourished. So first of all, and I think you addressed that as well, there is the skill of reading, of analyzing information, but also of being aware that information is reflecting a perspective, and so that if you want to have a clear view, you must use a lot of information, even if in the end, you will not make proper use of it. So I really hope, and that's what I'm often afraid about, that Gen AI will, let's say, accelerate our functional view on education, so that I think, so you have that, as I said, that physical exercise of reading, but also, if you want to reflect critically, you need a framework. And that framework is by having diverse information and by learning to assess information, to see this one is more important, of this one is expressing this view on society, and so on. And there, I think, you could say, well, Gen AI can do that for me. But of course, once again, if Gen AI does it for you, how will you assess it? We end here also with an ethical question. Gen AI just gives you what is like majority stuff, because it works on the basis of patterns, and we must make sure that that students are aware of it. That's why I think, for instance, that if we say to students, okay, you can use Gen AI also to search for your information, that for instance, it should be good that we say, well, dear students, what are, according to you, 10 major sources, and why did you only use those 3 and not those other 7? Could you please explain that to me? Or there are 3 research methods that come into view. Why did you choose? Here again, you can say, well, the student can ask it to Gen AI, but of course that is let's say, an endless argument. The student must in the end be able to discuss about it with you. I see 2 things. One was addressed by Ursula. Are we teachers, are we capable of doing so? Do we understand Gen AI? So we really will have to invest in it. And I think helping people, supervising master's theses will be more time consuming. Yeah, they say you can automate things with students, but maybe we will have to go back to basics, to having conversations with students, bringing students together. And we will have to be willing to invest in that we will need means. And then, sorry that I'm maybe a bit chaotic because I want to address so many things at the occasion of your comment. The last thing I think is that we must also make students aware that also culture has somehow a history. So reading a text, reading something on paper, um, reading something that is at first sight not useful has use as well, because it just opens your mind. It gives you air. Maybe that's not a scientific answer, but that's a really a heartfelt answer I want to give you.
Yes, thanks a lot. I think it's a really good answer. Are there any other questions or comments from our audience? We can take a couple of more minutes before we wrap it all up. I encourage the discussion and questions. But until we're waiting, actually, I have a question based on one thing that Bertel mentioned. It's about digital gap. And my question will go to Ursula, to Esu, that how do you see that access and inequality side of using AI in higher education? Students have different skills, but they also have diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, so their access to programs, AI programs, but also to digital tools, internet connection, it varies across countries and across different students. So how do you see that side, and what kind of risks and problems may rise from this angle?
Yes, this is something we spend majority time on. Like I mentioned, diverse learners, that includes some people from diverse economic backgrounds. The problem is that ideally we would like to universities to provide everything for students. The problem is universities are deeply underfunded in most countries in Europe. So this is not feasible, but it's something that we strive for. It's a double-ended sword when it comes to AI and diverse learners, especially with economical background, because at one hand, yes, they have, for instance, weaker internet connection or no connection to internet at all. But and those problems arise, and we need to tackle them and find really good solution in cooperation with universities and national ministries of education as well. But the other side is that using AI and overall digitalization of education, this is what it's basically about, the digital age that we are in and the digitalization of universities and courses that they provide. This also allows students from poor regions, for instance, that cannot afford to travel to bigger cities and afford living there, to partake in university courses at really good universities, and what they want to study instead of what they have to study because of distances between their home and universities. This allows for widespread of education and lifelong learning, for instance, for students to continue and persist in education. So I would say there are a lot of issues, like I said, but it's not something that we can just use a magic wand and solve, unfortunately, because this is a very layered issue that starts with underfunding of research, underfunding of staff, underfunding of universities as a whole. So I think it's really complex, and we are aware of that. But like I said, AI can bring a lot of opportunities and risk at the same time. So
Yeah, the access is the wicked problem in that sense that from where to start when you want to somehow alleviate the problems. But back to Bertel, who has raised a hand.
No, I fully agree. I just want to add that there can also be a gap lecturer-student. So I see, for instance, universities that encourage their staff members to try and to see what they can do with GenAI, and tell them, well, but you use the basic, the free version, or you invest in it yourself. It's good for yourself, and I think that is not the right way to deal with it. So if we want equal chances, and if we want to learn to deal with it or learn from it in a professional way, we will definitely, and I think there Ursula is right, we will somehow have to invest in it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's time to wrap it up because we're already a bit over time, but I think it's good to wrap it up with also one thing that we haven't mentioned yet, but it's about peer learning, that I think that universities should exchange their practices and discuss together what has worked, what hasn't worked, because we're all taking the first steps in this world with AI and its use in higher education. So this is definitely something to be encouraged as well, that share your practices and share the things you have done and what has worked and what not. But thank you, Bertul. Thank you, Ursula. It was a very fruitful discussion. A lot of questions we have in mind and we can continue thinking about. So I'm very grateful that you agreed to join us today. Also, many thanks to our listeners. And you can already save the date for the next EUROSTUDENT Talks. It will be the 9th of April. And we will continue on the path of digitalization and we'll focus on a project called DigiHE. So stay tuned and we will share the information soon. So bye-bye and thank you all.